South Korean stocks saw a sharp drop this morning after hitting multiple fresh highs in the past weeks. The benchmark index KOSPI fell below the 4,000 mark after declining as much as 6%. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth met with President Lee Jae-myung and South Korea's defense chief An Kyu-baek in Seoul and reaffirmed President Donald Trump's earlier approval for South Korea to acquire a nuclear-powered submarine, saying the United States will fully support the program. South Korea's spy agency says North Korea has shown multiple signs of preparing for potential dialogue with the United States, and added that it sees a joint military exercise between Seoul and Washington in March as a turning point in potential talks. Meanwhile, the U.S. has newly imposed sanctions on North Korean bankers accused of laundering stolen cryptocurrency. Hello and thanks for joining us on Arirang News. We begin today with South Korean stocks that's now seeing a sharp drop. The benchmark KOSPI is trading below the 4,000 mark, seeing as much as 6% decline on Wednesday morning. The market opened 1.61% lower than Tuesday's close and continued to fall, driven by a sell-off by foreign investors. It lost all the gains made over the past week after briefly climbing above 4,000 for the first time on October 27th. Amid the sharp decline, a sidecar was triggered, a measure that's activated when the KOSPI 200 futures index rises or falls of 5% or more for at least 1 minute. The sell-off mirrored a sharp decline in U.S. markets overnight, where major indices, including the Nasdaq, fell over 2% as profit-taking hit technology stocks. Also on Wednesday, the dollar-won exchange rate hit a 7-month high, with the dollar trading above 1,447 Korean won. In other news, South Korea's foreign reserves climbed for the 5th straight month in October, reaching the highest level in 33 months. According to the Bank of Korea on Wednesday, the nation's reserves stood at $428.82 billion at the end of October, up $6.8 billion from the previous month. It's the highest level since January 2023, when reserves hit nearly $430 billion. The central bank attributed the increase to stronger investment returns and new foreign currency denominated foreign exchange stabilization bonds. As of the end of September, South Korea ranked 9th worldwide in foreign reserve holdings. And South Korea's intelligence agency is offering new insight into Pyongyang's diplomatic movements, pointing to subtle shifts that indicate North Korea's preparation for potential dialogue with the United States. Our Buniran has the details.
Though an anticipated U.S.-North Korea summit encounter at the APEC leaders' meeting ultimately failed to materialize, South Korea's spy agency says Pyongyang had been quietly positioning itself for the possibility. According to briefings delivered during the National Assembly's audit of the National Intelligence Service on Tuesday, North Korea showed multiple signs of preparing for potential dialogue with Washington behind the scenes, even as it remained publicly unresponsive to repeated overtures. The NIS confirmed indications that Pyongyang had been adjusting its diplomatic posture, including Kim Jong-un's deliberate restraint from making provocative remarks on nuclear armament, to avoid antagonizing the United States. The agency also cited North Korea's efforts to analyze the policy stances of U.S. officials handling North Korea affairs and to gather information on influential figures in Washington as evidence of quiet preparation.
Although the APEC-related summit did not happen, various channels have confirmed that North Korea had been preparing behind the scenes for dialogue with the United States. The NIS believes Kim Jong-un intends to engage in talks and will seek contact once conditions are met.
The agency also sees early next year as a potential turning point. With the South Korea-US joint military exercises scheduled for March, the NIS says that period could determine whether high-level talks, possibly even at a summit level, become feasible.
We expect and judge the possibility to be quite high that U.S.-North Korea relations could improve next year, even advancing to a summit-level meeting. After the 9th Party Congress, another military parade, and the joint exercises in March, there may be an appropriate moment to explore or sense the possibility depending on how circumstances unfold.
As for Kim Jong-un's health, long a subject of speculation, the NIS reported no major abnormalities, saying he appears to be carrying out both provincial and Pyongyang-based activities without difficulty. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
And Washington has announced new sanctions on North Korean bankers and institutions for laundering money to fund Pyongyang's weapons program. Now, the move comes as U.S. President Donald Trump says sanctions would remain a key part of the dialogue with North Korea. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
The United States has announced new sanctions on individuals and institutions accused of helping North Korea launder billions of dollars stolen through cybercrime operations. According to the U.S. Treasury Department on Tuesday, 8 people and 2 firms are being sanctioned for channeling money from cyber heists and IT fraud to finance North Korea's nuclear weapons program. Among those sanctioned are North Korean bankers Chang Guk-chul and Heo Jung-sun, who allegedly managed more than $5 million in cryptocurrency connected to the sanctioned First Credit Bank. Washington says over the past 3 years, North Korean hackers have stolen and laundered more than $3 billion in digital assets, the largest amount linked to any foreign actor. U.S. Treasury Undersecretary for Terrorism and Financial Intelligence John K. Hurley said the regime's hackers steal and launder money to fund nuclear development. The department said the network operates across China, Russia, and other countries, using shell companies and foreign banks to disguise the source of funds. The latest sanctions come as U.S. President Donald Trump said sanctions would remain a key part of any dialogue with Pyongyang. After the collapse of a possible U.S.-North Korea summit during Trump's recent visit to Asia, Washington moved quickly to expand sanctions, signaling stronger pressure on the regime. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
South Korea's Defense Minister An Gyu-baek and U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth held their annual security talks on Tuesday. A joint communique was not released, but they did tap into ways to boost defense ties. Our defense correspondent Kim Bo-kyung tells us more.
The South Korean and U.S. defense chiefs reaffirmed the steadfastness of the ROK-US alliance during their annual security talks, the 57th Security Consultative Meeting on Tuesday. A joint communique was not released, waiting for a joint fact sheet for the 2 countries to come out first. Still, Defense Minister An Gyu-baek and U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth did share some parts of the discussion they had during the meeting. Regarding the nuclear-powered submarines, which Trump recently gave approval to, the Pentagon vowed support across its departments.
We're going to work closely with the Department of State and the Department of Energy to fulfill President Trump's commitment in a deliberate manner. And I think it's a reflection of something I said, that the president wants allies to be strong.
Noting that South Korea is a model ally, Hegseth said he was encouraged by South Korea's commitment to increase defense spending and make greater investments in ROK military capabilities. To modernize the alliance and boost ties, the 2 allies agreed on some practical steps, including having U.S. warships be repaired in South Korea to ensure their most lethal capability remains ready to respond to any crisis. As to whether the U.S. forces Korea could be used against China in the Taiwan Strait, U.S. Defense Chief underlined the importance of flexibility, but said the USFK is oriented to protect South Korea from the north.
There's no doubt, flexibility for regional contingencies is something we would take a look at, but we are focused on standing by our allies here and ensuring the threat of the DPRK is not a threat to the Republic of Korea, and certainly continue to extend nuclear deterrence as we have before.
The comment resonates with the 2 defense chiefs' earlier visit to the joint security area within the demilitarized zone on Monday for the first time in 8 years. Meanwhile, when asked about whether South Korea hopes to pursue nuclear weapons development, Minister An clearly said this was not possible.
South Korea is part of the NPT, so it's not allowed to have nuclear weapons. Therefore, developing nuclear weapons in South Korea would not be possible.
He further added that because South Korea cannot possess nuclear weapons, the Combined Nuclear and Conventional Integration System, integrating U.S. nuclear capabilities with South Korea's conventional weapons, has been established. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Starting today, the National Assembly will begin reviewing the Lee administration's budget proposal for next year. President Lee Jae-myung laid out details of the plan at Parliament on Tuesday, calling for bipartisan support to boost spending on artificial intelligence as the country seeks new growth engines. Our top office correspondent Yoon Jung-min reports.
The focus of the 2026 budget proposal was on seeking new growth engines, with President Lee Jae-myung calling it the very first budget to open up the era of AI.
국제 무역 통상 질서의 재편과 인공지능 대전환의 파도 앞에서 국가 생존을 모색해야 할 절체절명의 위기에 처해 있습니다. 이제는 인공지능 시대의 고속도로를 구축해서 도약과 성장의 새로운 미래를 열어야 합니다.
The government has projected a record high of 728 trillion won, or over $508 billion for next year's budget, up 8% from this year. Nearly $7 billion has been earmarked for AI-related projects, 3 times higher than this year's spending, with a focus on physical AI and use of the technology in robots and automobiles. Next year's defense spending will be expanded by more than 8%. Worth over $46 billion, with more use of AI by the defense forces, as the commander-in-chief called for self-reliant defense.
전 세계 5위의 군사력으로 평가받는 우리 대한민국이 국방을 외부에 의존한다는 것은 우리 국민의 자존심 문제 아니겠습니까?
Other areas of focus were on the R&D budget, which will be a record high, as well as the so-called National Growth Fund, NK Culture. He also vowed to secure a social safety net and help small business owners through local consumption coupons. And looking back on last week's diplomatic super week, the president said uncertainties over the economy have been eased by reaching a trade deal with the U.S. As the president called for across-the-aisle collaboration, speaking before a 2/3 full Congress, following a boycott by the main opposition People Power Party over an arrest warrant against its party member.
좀 허전하군요.
The mood was starkly contrasting as the ruling Democratic Party lawmakers responded to the president with rounds of applause. The legal deadline for the parliamentary budget review is set for December 2nd. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
An Emmy Award-winning professor, Sam Richards, delivered a lecture in Seoul on Tuesday, titled Living in Korea, Seeing the World Differently. The lecture, attended by foreign students living in South Korea, explored how life in the country can broaden their perspectives and discussed the importance of adapting to the Korean society by learning the language and understanding its culture. The talk was part of the 30 Days in Seoul program, which helps foreign students adjust to life in South Korea through hands-on experiences with K-culture and career support opportunities. And in other news, one farm in Gyeonggi-do province is using coffee grounds to grow mushrooms, and it says yield is up while costs are down. Our Cha Eun-kyung tells us more.
This is a farm for oyster mushrooms in Gyeonggi-do province. It seems like a normal cultivation facility, but there's a special secret hidden in the substrate the mushrooms are growing on, used coffee grounds. By mixing the grounds with traditional substrate materials, the mushroom yield increased by an average of 8%.
The coffee grounds are rich in nutrients like lipids and crude protein. When the right conditions are provided, the results show a remarkable boost in mushroom production.
It's not just mushroom yields that have increased. coffee grounds are more than 50% cheaper than traditional substrate materials, such as cottonseed meal and beet pulp, making them highly cost-effective. As a result, the grounds are gaining attention as a prime example of resource-circulating agriculture, reusing agri-food byproducts in farming.
We found that coffee grounds replace about 10% of beet pulp and cottonseed meal in the substrate. We will present a standardized substrate formula using coffee waste and promote its supply among farmers.
Used coffee grounds are creating a virtuous cycle of resource circulation, boosting farmers' income while also contributing to environmental protection. Cha Yoon-kyung, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you everything you need to know from around the globe. In Israel on Tuesday, authorities said they received the remains of what is believed to be a dead hostage from Gaza under the U.S. brokered ceasefire that began last month. Officials said the coffin was transferred via the Red Cross in Gaza and taken to Israel's National Forensic Center in Tel Aviv for identification. If confirmed, it would leave 7 deceased hostages still in Gaza. The transfer follows earlier body returns on Sunday and last Thursday. Under the deal, 20 living and 28 deceased hostages were to be returned within 72 hours. All living hostages were freed on 13th of October in exchange for 250 prisoners and 1,718 detainees. Israel has also handed over the bodies of 270 Palestinians in previous exchanges linked to the truce. Authorities say coordination with the Red Cross will continue to identify and recover remaining bodies while the ceasefire remains in place. In the Philippines on Tuesday, Typhoon Kalmegi left at least 46 people dead and forced hundreds of thousands from their homes as floods swept through Cebu and other provinces. Entire towns on Cebu are underwater and casualties expected to rise despite almost 400,000 people being moved out of the path of the typhoon. A military helicopter sent for relief efforts also crashed on Mindanao Island, killing 6 crew members. The storm, locally named Tino, has weakened since landfall early Tuesday, but still brings winds over 80 miles per hour and is forecast to move into the South China Sea by Wednesday. In the United States, former Vice President Dick Cheney, one of Washington's most influential and divisive figures, has died at the age of 84. Cheney's family said he passed away on Monday from complications of pneumonia and heart disease. Cheney served under President George W. Bush and was widely seen as the driving force behind America's war on terror after the 9/11 attacks. Critics accused him of shaping policies that led to the invasions of Iraq and Afghanistan, the use of torture, and expanded surveillance of U.S. citizens. Before the White House, Cheney held senior government roles, including Defense Secretary under George H.W. Bush, and he later served as CEO of Halliburton. A statement from his family described Cheney as a man of courage, honor, and love for country. In Los Angeles, Hollywood stars gathered on Saturday night for the 2025 LACMA Art and Film Gala, raising $6.5 million for the Los Angeles County Museum of Art. Presented by Gucci and co-chaired by Leonardo DiCaprio and Eva Chow, the gala honored Black Panther director Ryan Coogler and artist Mary Kors for shaping modern culture. Guests filled the museum grounds as Doja Cat sparked the night with a high-energy set. LACMA's director Michael Govan hailed it as a celebration of creativity that can only happen in Los Angeles. Chu Ji-hyun, Arirang News.
We are in for more beautiful late autumn weather today, one of the most pleasant times to be outdoors and Enjoy nature. After a chilly start, it will warm up quickly again, so the morning jacket might feel too warm in the afternoon, but once the sun goes down, we'll need that jacket again. So this huge daily temperature swing means that immunity can drop easily. Given the recent spike in cold cases, please take extra care with your personal hygiene and health management. This afternoon, highs will soar by over 10 degrees Celsius. Seoul topping out at 18 degrees Celsius, Gyeongju at 20 degrees, Busan 22 under sunny skies nationwide. This clear, dry, and high temperature gap pattern will continue for the time being. Make sure to dress accordingly and make the most of this fine autumn weather while you can.
That's all we have for today's noon edition of Arirang News. Thank you for watching. We'll be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Stay tuned.